Looks like we have everybody, yeah? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the PolyU MBA Special Executive Webinar Series with media support from aperformers.com. My name is Pamsy, and I am the Deputy Program Director of PolyU MBA. And I will be your host today. In this webinar series, we will explore how the pandemic has impacted our work and life, and how our next normal will look like, with insights from experts from different sectors. This is our second installment of the series, in which we will explore how digital transformation has been accelerated during the pandemic, and how we can prepare ourselves for the future that it will bring. In its 30+ years of history, PolyU MBA has always aimed to develop future responsible leaders who have the foresight and agility to innovate. It is a place where academic rigor meets practical wisdom, and a place where mid-career professionals learn from and exchange ideas with experts and senior executives. That brings us to what we are doing today. We have heard a lot about phrases like digital transformation, the fourth industrial revolution, AI, blockchain, etc. So much of such words that we have heard in the past few years, even before the pandemic. But what have leading organizations in these areas have been doing? For today's webinar, we are happy to be joined by two senior executives with considerable experience in digital transformation in their respective fields. Before we start, we'd like to remind you all a few housekeeping matters. First, this webinar will be recorded, so beware of that. Second, in order for us to hear the speakers clearly, please mute yourself. And of course, we have already muted everybody, but make sure you don't hit the unmute button unnecessarily. However, you are welcome to ask questions. So if you have any questions, please type your questions into your chat box. You can see the chat box in the Zoom bar. So we'll address these questions at the end in the Q&A session. The webinar will be structured as such. Our two speakers will each share the insights on their experience with digital transformation first, followed by the Q&A section in the end. Without further delay, please allow me to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Dr. Ted Suen. Dr. Ted Suen is currently the Executive Director of NEOM. In this capacity, Dr. Suen is responsible for the implementation of digital mobility platform for smart cognitive city. Before joining NEOM, Dr. Suen had been with MTR Corporation for 10 years as CIO of NTR. Dr. Suen is a senior IT executive with broad experiences in formulating corporate digital transformation strategy and successfully transforming large-scale corporate IT organizations to support corporate strategy. Dr. Suen has won multiple awards in the region in recognition for his vision in digital transformation and next-generation IT functions. So Dr. Suen, please. Dr. Suen, you have not unmuted yourself.
Okay, so sorry. Okay, thanks, Dr. He. First of all, thank you for giving me 30 minutes in doing some sharing on digital transformation. It's definitely my honor and pleasure. So in the next 30 minutes, I will going to discuss some of the common themes of digital transformation, some of the typical applications of the latest emerging technologies on all this. Okay, let me share my screen. So I hope everyone can see my screen. Okay, I see people nodding their head. Okay. So first of all, up to now, we have been impacted by the pandemic, the COVID-19, for more than 2 years. Okay, so what have we been changing in reacting to this COVID-19 since 2020, beginning of 2020? So for personal, we get used to all this personal hygiene, hand hygiene. We wash our hands, we use the sanitizers to clean our hand every time when we go out or come back to our homes. We get used to wear masks. Of course, we don't want to wear this, in particular this during summertime, and all this temperature sensing for our temperature, and also we get used to all the social distancing. Luckily, in recent, we see that the social distancing rules get a little bit loosened, and we can go out for more social distancing event like hiking. We don't need to wear masks for all this. Of course, we still have to pay attention to the COVID-19 as we have not completely get away from all this COVID. Okay, and we see a lot of changes, not only on personal level, also on organization level. So employees getting work from home, less travel, definitely less travel, not only on the country level, also between the regions. People cannot travel. Even you can travel when you come back to Hong Kong, you have to stay nowadays for 7 days quarantine, and not many people prefer. Students in the past, they have been studying from home for 2 years. And also we change our habit of dining out. Instead of dining out, we do a lot of takeaway or even cook in our home ourselves. And do we think that everything will resume back to exactly the normal before 2020? Definitely not 100%, right? We see some changes already happen. Transformation changes. Transformation changes not only happen to organizations, also happen to ourselves, as I just mentioned about that. And in the future, we do believe that there will be inevitably some changes that once it's changed, will not go back, will not go back to the previous stage. So there will be more changes happen, and there is 50%, 57% of people, they believe that actually there will be changes in the future and not exactly back to the original normal. It will be like what we talk about, the new normal. And how about organizations? According to Gartner, they see that there will be organization. They do believe that, okay, they have to change. They have to continue to changes to rescale their organizations, to rescale the business model, or reinvent in certain business model of their organization. And some organizations believe that they will be returned to the original model. That's mean the return state. And some, maybe due to different reasons, they see themselves will be reducing in their operations. And some, unfortunately, some companies, they actually gone out of the business, as we can lately recently see from the news that some of the snack shop, they already closed down their business because there are not many tourists coming into Hong Kong in the last 2 years. Okay, so we talk about a lot of transformation, digital transformation. So what is exactly about digital transformation? If you go to ask different people, they have different meanings to you. But I like to highlight 3 similar terminology about digital transformation. Okay, if we look at different sources, Wikipedia, Gartner, Forrester, they all have different meanings. But in the end, there's common terminology or common point about the digital transformation. Digital transformation is not just about automation of manual process. We see automation happen 20, 30 years ago when we have the computer already. When once we have the computer, we have the IT, we have the process, the change from paper-based to digital-based. This is not digital transformation. This is just automation. Okay, so you have heard about all these examples. Okay, so I like to just clarify, just to ensure that everyone on the same page about what is digital transformation. So a lot of people do something, change from analog to digital, like the previously when we take the camera, You use the analog and change to digital. It is digitization. Okay, so this is not digital transformation. And second, okay, we use digital technology to change the business model and provide more value added to our customer and to gain more additional opportunities for ourselves or adjacent business opportunities. This is what we call the digitalizations. And digital transformation is even the broader terms, okay, is not only on the previous two terminology, it's more on the business model transformation, organization changes, implementation of digital technologies to help the organization to really change from one business model to another business model with the adoptions of emerging technologies, as well as organization changes to a certain extent. Okay, so what are the driving force for digital transformation? We see a lot of changes. So why we need to change? Because there's quite different reasons. First of all, business, the competitions. We always face different competition from our competitors in the same industry, or even from other business model or from other company. They're coming from outside the industry. They're coming from other industry, but they change the model and get to share the lunch, get to share the business, get to share the market. Okay, so once we see that there's a business opportunity, because unless this is a monopoly industry, otherwise other people are free to join this industry or come into this industry. For our own organization, maybe we also want to change. We see that there are other opportunities. We want to grab the opportunities. And also, quite often, we see that actually this adjacent business opportunity just at the boundary of our existing industry or our existing business model. And this is something that we really want to grab the opportunity. So that's why we want to change. And secondly, as we always facing competitions, either we want to retain our market share, or we want to improve our bottom line, our cost margin. So what can we do? We have to make sure that we have the most effective and most efficient business operation model or the processes. And this is something that we really want to look into by adopting emerging technology to improve the effectiveness and efficiencies of the process. Of course, all of this have to be supported by data analytics. And this is another area a lot of people talk about: data analytics, big data, all these things. And this helps to make better business decisions. Customer, because your competitors are also changing. They're also providing different customer experience to the customer. So your customer may be expecting something more from and due to they can understand more about the technology. They see other business, other company providing much better services. So they may come to you, ask for more, and they want to have more better customer experiences. And you also want to improve their customer experiences as well as to enhance their customer satisfactions. Employees. Nowadays, we have a lot of young people working in our company. Okay, so we see that actually their way of doing work is quite different from us, or from me at least. Okay, I'm not young, so definitely the way that I work will be quite different from the young guys. I look at the young employees in different companies nowadays. Very simple. They have 2-3 monitors in front of them, in particular for the IT field. Okay, they really want to have different types of work. They want to have a flexible working hour. They don't really want to have their own cubicle. They want to work in open space offices. So they always ask the questions: what's the values of their work? Okay, so it's quite different from different generations. And because of this, sometimes we also have to think about what we really need to change in order to retain our talent, at the same time to attract more talent into our companies. So what are the digital technologies? Okay, so we have all these driving forces. At the same time, we also see the driving forces come from another perspective, which is emerging technologies. So according to Gartner, some of the latest emerging technologies from 2020 to 2022 are some of the very typical terminology that you have heard for the last couple of years: AI, machine learning, IoT, big data analytics, 5G is getting very popular. And biometrics used in different areas. You use on your mobile phone. Company use that for entrance into the offices. And augmented reality, virtual reality. You talk about this two terminology, I think, very frequently nowadays, in particular related to metaverse. Blockchain, we all look at the cryptocurrency. We always want to get some money from that. Okay, and robotics, you see robotics everywhere already. In train station, in hotel, everywhere, even in restaurant, you see the robotic, they deliver the food to the table. Natural language processing and quantum computing is getting there. I think maybe in another 5-10 years, a lot of applications may be able to use the quantum computing, but not very popular or common nowadays due to the technologies. Okay, and look at some of the examples that we really see people deploy in the last several years. We use all this. Even now, we use the Zoom meeting, we use video conferencing, work from home, study from home. We use robotic for cleansing in a train compartment. We see healthcare technologies, remote doctors sitting remotely, taking off you, and e-commerce. Everyone use mobile phone for food ordering, online entertainment. Okay, Netflix. Okay, and AI-based data analytics, and basically big data analytics is in everywhere, is in every applications, because in the end, the AI need at the back end, they need big data analytics to support their learnings. Another perspective to look at the emerging technology. So it's just presence everywhere. Healthcare, I mentioned about it, and use healthcare to screen and match patients on their symptoms, on their treatment. Finance, we all know that there's AI on the finance market, on the stock market. Manufacturing, robotics, IoT, 5G, and online retail. We do a lot of online retailing nowadays. Okay, entertainment, not only on the Netflix, it's also on all those virtual games. Cybersecurity actually employ or deploy a lot of AI techniques and big data at the back end. Okay, to understand the pattern of the attack of cybersecurity and automations. A lot of automation processes happen. So again, this is all AI. We know this. Biometrics use AI. Smart driving use AI. Social media use AI. Personalizations on your mobile phone. Smart home devices. Like the series on your iPhone is all related to AI. And I mentioned before, more and more example, retail. You go to see a lot of retail, a lot of restaurant. Actually, nowadays, they use a lot of technologies already. Okay, stock trading, I mentioned about it. Journalism, we have robot with AI at the back end to really compile the news content and even writing up the article as well. And not only on this field, we see that the AI also happening in legal field, construction, property, everywhere. So I'm talking about all this transformation, all this technology. So how are we going to start the actual transformation, digital transformation? First of all, you have to think about if you are in, I won't say a very small organization, maybe from a middle-sized to large organizations, you think about how you really work together. IT, business people, operation people, they really work together, okay, to come up some of the pain points, to understand the pain point, and come up with innovative IT solutions that can really help them to kill the pain point, to do the digital transformation. And technologies is important. We always talk about how to make use of the technologies. So we have to understand the technology and how that can be applied to the business model. An organization, I mentioned about in the digital transformation terminology, there's always some organization changes in place. If you look at some of the famous organizations in the world, they always change their organization, not only change the process, not only use that technology, they even change the organization so that make it very streamlined and more effectiveness. And people, In many organizations, we have to uplift the IT competency of the employees, the digital competency. But I think it's just a matter of the culture, the change management, because in the end, people always say they don't know how to use technology, but they play their phone very well. They know how to make full use of their mobile phone, maybe even sometimes better than me. And sourcing, I understand there's always budget constraint. There are always huge demands of IT people or huge demands of digital people in the market. So many organizations, they really have to think about where to get the people. They want to hire the people, or they want to insource the people, or they want to outsource the people, or they want to build their own infrastructure, or they want to use the cloud services, which is quite commonly available in the market nowadays. So start from a very high level approach. So you have to think big, okay, come up what you really want to do, what can be done, and then identify some key initiatives. So you think big and start small and focus on the low-hanging fruit. Don't really want to solve a big problem at day one. You have to start, you have to experience all this and work out the synergy and work out a plan, and then start gradually. And once you can engage your people and when you can show some result, and I do believe more people will be happy to get on board together with you to start the digital transformation journey. So change management, no matter you are large or small company, you have to have a very clear or good communication to the team, to your employees, why you want to start digital transformation, what will be the benefit to them, what will be the future state, and make sure that you get them on board, get their buy-in, and also get the executive sponsor. And quite often that sometimes we can get some people, they really want to onboard, they really want to start the journey with you. So we'll be your change agent and collaborations. And gradually you can build the critical mass, and one by one you can do the transformations. Of course, when you own the digital transformation, you make sure that you have clear KPI and measurements so that you can present to your boss that you have successfully transformed or gradually transformed and work towards to the final journey, to the destination of the transformation journey. Good governance framework, once you get the stakeholder, once you get the senior executive on board, they can support you. And of course, you don't work inside, no, you don't work in your own room. Okay, you have to have timely and regular feedback and monitor back to the stakeholder, and then they will further support you, and then you can easily, successfully implement the digital transformation journey in your organizations. I always encourage people to think about innovations, because without innovation, you won't change. You will stick with what you have done before, status quo. So cultivate the open culture and adventurous spirit in your organization, not only from the top down, from the executive, they can drive a lot of initiative, but in the end, we need the support, we need the engagement of the employees at the working level and make continuous improvement. There's always room for improvement, even though today you successfully transform one business model. Down the road, 2 years, 3 years time, there may be some other external factor changes. Then you might also have to revisit the process and further improve again. So make some small team, allow the staff to give you suggestions, open-minded, and this is very important for foster innovation in any organizations. So keep on talking about the innovation, do more on this, and sometimes you may also like to do some proof of concept. Quite nowadays, a lot of people talk about the automations of processes, and maybe you might have heard about what we call the RPA, robotic process automations. So you can engage some consultant or external party, or even ask your staff, if you are not a big company, to do some prototyping, to do something changes, and to how that can impact to your organization, or what kind of changes you have to make in order to work on that transformation. So again, innovations, proof of concept. So looking forward, what should we do? Over the years, there have been, we have IT, we have computer for 5-6 decades already. Okay, over the years, we have been seeing technologies have really rationalized our world and our daily lives everywhere. And technology is just tools, okay, and options for us to change. In the end, human being is more important. We are the one who use technologies. Okay, if we don't start, if we just status quo, okay, then nothing will happen. So, and I do believe that in the coming future, technology will even further or expedite the change of our life, or even revolutionize our life even much faster than before. And the most important elements I mentioned before is people. So how can we make full use of technologies? Is our innovation idea, our curiosity. Curiosity means what kind of changes, what kind of technologies can we apply to help us, and the ethical values. Okay, a lot of people talk about AI. A lot of people talk about data analytics. The AI is still a program. It's still engine. Okay, it's how we cook the AI, how we make use of the data. So no matter what you do, make sure that we still look at the ethical values of ourselves and keep learning. Okay, because you can just stay there, but the world is moving. Other people are learning new technologies. Other companies are changing. So you really have to change if you want to stay, not only stay ahead of your competitors, or you want to stay in the industry. Okay, so I think we always have to be a good learner, keep learning, and lifelong learning on all this. So a lot of people just worry about, will technology replace our job? Okay, I am a technology guy. I've been in the industry for more than 30 years. I have not replaced someone's job, nor the technology replaced my job. Okay, so I see the technology are helping us a lot. Okay, so if you look at more than 100 years ago with industrial revolutions, okay, those people, their job has not lost, it just changed the job nature. Okay, we see digital revolutions. I mentioned about IT has been here for 50 years. Okay, and if you are 60-year-old or if you are 40 years old, have you lost your job? You just use the IT. You won't be replaced by a robot. We have robot a lot many years ago in industry. So I don't really see that. Our jobs will be replaced by AI, replaced by technology. It's just the job nature. Just some job will be disappear. I do agree that. Okay, in particular for those repetitive job nature, routine job nature. But if we keep on learning new technology and there are other new job nature coming up, people will migrate to that. Okay, and you think about 40, 50 years ago, a lot of jobs disappear, but the employment rate has not increased. Population increased a lot, but employment rate has not increased. That means more and more people coming out, they still have their job. Okay, and be creative and innovative. We always have to do that. Okay, and remember, we are the people, we are the human being to use the tools. Okay, there are always interaction between tools and human being, and this is how we're going to manage. I cannot say AI, I'm not an AI expert. I cannot predict what will be the AI exactly can do in 10 years time, but I do believe it can do a lot. But at the same time, every industry still demand the human beings, we people, to do the business. And because there are a lot of business, still we require people interactions, be it internally or be it with your customer. So we still, last but not least, is still the knowledge, how we acquire knowledge, how we keep on learning. So with all this, conclude my sharing today. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Suen. Thank you for sharing with us the general idea of digitalization, and digital transformation. I'm sure a lot of us have not had such clear separation or definition of the three separately. And it's also heartening to hear that we're not going to be out of work, out of job, right? It's more a matter of changing the nature of our work. Certainly, a lot of people are interested in this, and we see some questions already about that. And I would like to invite more people to ask questions, type your questions in the chat box. We'll deal with them later on in the Q&A section. Now, let me introduce our second speaker here. So our second speaker is Mr. Nailesh Shah. So Mr. Shah is the head of digital channels and experience for Citibank Hong Kong, overseeing digital channels and their integration with the online and offline client experience for the consumer banking franchise in Hong Kong. Prior to assuming his current position, Mr. Shah was the head of digital engagement and card journey with Citi Singapore, where he was also responsible for the strategic integration for the for the service innovation to enhance the credit card holders' digital experience and driving mobile engagement with clients. So that's a lot of experience in the journey of digitalization and also digital transformation. In addition to the above, Mr. Shah also had years of experience with Citi Japan and Oracle Finance Services. Mr. Shah, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hui, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure talking to all of you about the digital transformation. Without further ado, let me share my screen. Give me 30 seconds, and it should be in front of you. Okay, I think you can see my screen. Okay. So let me first, start by saying that digital transformation and is something which has been ongoing for a while. And what pandemic has done has definitely reshaped the banking world. And when we talk about digital transformation, all the concepts that you heard in the previous sharing of how what the digital transformation is, what the technology behind is, and how we should go about doing it. Today I'll be talking about basically its practical implementation of how Citi was thinking about it, and what we did and what we are doing about it. And how has pandemic kind of changed the way we are doing things, or I should say accelerated the way that we are doing things, right? In terms of our focus on the digital capabilities and the experience, as we all know, right, as we have all seen in last couple of years, 2-3 years, pandemic has really changed the way we live, the way we work. So it has not only changed that, but it's also changed the way what are the consumers' needs, behaviors, and preferences, right? Today, a lot of us want to when we want to bank digitally. So even the consumer habits are changing, where they are using more and more mobile devices, right? So I think when we talk about digital transformation, it's important to understand the kind of the drivers or the problem statement what led to this transformations, right? Or what are the drivers to these transformations? First and foremost, obviously the consumer behavior itself, right? As the technology has evolved, as the internet penetration in the markets and the adoption of smartphones today, pretty much everyone has a smartphone. With the advancement in the internet speeds on mobile devices with 4G, 5G, and in some spaces we are even talking about 6G coming up. So with all these advancements, access to information, in any form, right? Earlier when we were talking about internet access and consuming the information, mostly it was in the form of text. But now on our mobile devices, we are pretty much used to consuming various material in various forms, and even videos. Probably even this seminar webinar today is, a lot of you are probably viewing it on your smartphone. Probably few years back, probably that was not possible. So all of these things, has led to an increasing demand from consumers for the organization as well, to meet that need, right? To meet the need of, being information or being access available anytime, anywhere, right? So the consumers would also don't want to go to the branches and probably spend some time doing some basic transactions like transferring money or making a payment. They want to do it pretty much at the convenience of at the convenience of using their phone anytime, anywhere, kind of a thing, right? So pretty much, the consumer demand and the consumer behavior is changing with all these adoptions. Second is the technology innovation as well, right? We have been talking about Web 1.0, 2.0, and now Web 3.0. At the same time, there are other advancements happening around cloud computing, big data, machine learning, right? Where systems can now process huge volumes of data pretty much in milliseconds, or if not in microseconds. So this has really allowed us to kind of process information in real time and customize our response for the next conversation with the clients, right? So technology is playing a pivotal role here. I would say, along with that, if you talk about the good old days, and with the business model dependent on the branches, on the people that we have, obviously those business models are not scalable. At the same time, there are pressures on the margin with rising competition, with industry dynamics. So overall, it required a really a cost-effective, scalable model that can deliver the needs. And lastly, it's not that banks have not been using technology, right? Bank has been using technology for the longest of times, right? It's just that and over the course of years, those technologies have been there. So what is more important is for us to kind of redesigning or replacing of those legacy systems for us to be future compatible, right? This is and it is really important to look at where do we want to invest our dollars in kind of solving the right pain points, in finding the right opportunities, and overall changing the business model to meet all of these things together, right? So when we talk about these problem statements, right, how did we go about solving for those? What's more important is the client centricity, and it is all about keeping clients at the center of everything that we do. Digital solutions can provide scale, but it is important to see how we can add the personalization and the empathy to the whole journey, so that the client can connect with the experience. At the same time, the experience has to be seamless between the offline and the online world. And one good example here, probably I would take an example of a very different industry where they do really good work when it comes to connecting the online and offline experiences, is some of the travel companies. When you're trying to buy a airline ticket, I've not seen that happening in Hong Kong here, but at least in some of the other markets, where if you're trying to, let's say, buy an airline ticket and you're not able to make a decision, just and you immediately receive a call or an assisted service from their call center, kind of a thing. Hey, Mr. Nailesh, I see you, trying to buy this ticket. May I help you in completing your journey? So this is a very seamless way of integrating the online and offline experience, where this, while this is an example of trying to salvage a sales transaction, the such things need to be expanded into solving the servicing aspects as well. uh, can when we spoke about having legacy, using the tech stack which has been there for quite a few years, it's important to upgrade and move to the latest technology. And when you try to do that, it's important to look at how you want to do it, right? Whether you want to build in-house, or with all the different fintech ecosystem evolving, whether you would want to have a partnership with the ecosystem, so that you find the right solution with the right set of controls. Next, I think when we talk about digitalization, right, or we should also look at doing things straight to state end to end. It should be a straight through processing, right? And things should be automated. So and lastly, from an ecosystem standpoint, right, if you look at the data on the previous slide, today the clients spend around 7+ hours online on a daily basis through various touch points, right? We might be chatting with our friends, or listening to music, social media, or pretty much any other thing to a digital channel, right? How do we build scale through the partner ecosystem and provide banking as a service? And one good example over here from our perspective is, if you are one of the largest e-commerce website or e-commerce company here, which is the HKTV Mall. While you're shopping on their website, you can apply for, if you don't have a Citi product, you can apply for a Citi credit card. Or if you're an existing Citi customer, you can use points or miles to pay for your transactions. So that way we need to see how we can integrate or be in the ecosystem, or be in the client's digital ecosystem. So these are the different solutions through which we've been trying to solve for those problem statements, and then embark on the digital transformation journey, right? When we talk about this transformation, what are the 4 pillars of transformation that we've been focusing on? Just before going into each of these pillars, right? We spoke about how the consumer needs and behaviors are changing. We saw how the pandemic, we briefly spoke about how pandemic is accelerating some of these things. The other factor, right, the other couple of factors which is kind of enabling or acting as a catalyst to move towards this digital transformation is also the regulatory framework, right? If you have seen or read, last year, Hong Kong Monetary Authority launched the FinTech 2025 strategy for the financial sector to adopt adopt technology or FinTech comprehensively by 2025. And one of the key focus areas for FinTech 2025 strategy was for all banks to fully digitalize their operations front to back by 2025, right? So on one side it was the consumer demand, the other is the regulatory framework, the third even from a competition standpoint, right, by all the industry players moving towards digital, and also the emergence of virtual banks. So the in Hong Kong, there were in 2020, 2021 overall, now we have 8 virtual banks, which is the digital bank licenses issued. So they are pretty much purely digital banks. So all these factors played a role in terms of city embracing their digital transformation and innovation journey. And when we started on this, I think we kind of focused on four critical aspects. One is the platform and the ecosystem itself. uh, I think the first and foremost, what we recognized is that if we need to kind of have or build a digital experience or a client experience which is future compatible, we need to have a robust platform which can help us build things at scale and with agility. So that's why it was important to, when any of you want to embark on that journey, it is important to look at the right technology based on what use case that you're solving for, what's your target audience is. So choosing that platform is really important, right? How what technology, what tech stack that you want to use to build that, such that you can build modular reusable components such that it is consistent, and you can build it at really good speed. uh, Next, I think on the platform, the other aspect that we focused on was how do we make the platform as an open framework. And what I mean by that is, when we spoke about build in-house or have these tech partnerships or fintech partnerships, how should we build a framework such that we can incorporate those fintech partners, integrate them easily into our ecosystems, so that we can provide a much better seamless experience for the customers. And lastly, also, that was for on us channels, right? Then how do we kind of through that same platform and ecosystem build, how do we enable off us ecosystem also, right? So how do we kind of build onto the digital perception scale through partnerships? So we created a lot of open bank, a lot of APIs through which we could integrate into the partner ecosystem, so that we could be in the partners ecosystem, right? And the customers can experience our services through that ecosystem. So that was overall on the platform and the ecosystem. The second area was the engagement, right? So once you have the platform, once you have the capabilities, once you have the features that there on the system, how do we get the customers to engage onto that platform, and then drive the engagement? How do we bring the traffic to the channels, and then how do we make them keep coming back to the platform, so that we build the engagement with the customers? And the way we and the way we kind of go about it is thinking of digital also as like a retail store, right? The way you have different floors on a retail, you have different shelves on different floors, each shelf trying to showcase certain set of products, certain set of brands, etc. So it was a similar concept that we kind of thought about by building the platform, and then having the shelves within the platform to show the customers the products that they have, the products that they can get. But compared to retail store, right, the added advantage when it comes to digital is you can always get to use the power, or harness the power of data to provide much granular insights to the customer, which can drive that client engagement through the approach of next best conversation, which has really helped us in terms of driving the engagement. And if you look at some of the numbers here, we have around 86% of our customers who interact with us on digital channels. And through this approach, we've also seen that more and more customers are in buying and purchasing with us online through our digital platforms. The other critical aspect is, which is the third pillar, is the client experience, right? The idea is, the objective is to provide a truly world-class experience, simplifying and standardizing our approach, focus on critical priorities that impact the client experience. At the same time, building stronger organizational connections among our teams to accelerate that progress. Again, breaking down this into kind of smaller bites, right? Focus on low-hanging fruits, which are pain points for the customers, solve for those pain points at an accelerated or in a much more agile way that will kind of help improve the customer experience. At the same time, work on creating those best-in-class journeys or the experiences. And lastly, client experience is not a one person or a one team job, right? It's an organizational culture thing. So we need to drive that organizational culture to be client obsessed, right? To keep client at the center of everything that we do. So that has really helped us drive in some of the client satisfaction related scores. So if you look at some of our digital NPS numbers, we've really grown significantly in last 2 to 3 years. And lastly, while we build the platform, we build the engagement and client experience. One thing which we should not forget about is the risk and control, right? As the business model changes, as we drive customers online, all our control processes, our risk parameters should also evolve, keeping pace with the digital. And we should kind of build simplified and automated elements to risk and control, which can help us prevent, detect and mitigate the risk. Next, I think talking about talking about all these pillars of digital transformation, very critical is to have that organizational framework or the organizational DNA in place that will define or set the tone for this transformation, right? And culture is the most crucial part of its DNA. It can be a competitive advantage and potentially decide the outcome of the transformation. Having the right culture enables an environment to attract the right talent, which in turn will help drive innovation and meticulous execution. Everyone in the organization, and in terms of building that culture, right? Everyone in the organization needs to kind of understand why we are doing it, what we are doing, and how we want to deliver it. And that message and that and that message has to be set from the top as well. The management needs to be talking the same thing as the junior most employee in the organization. So that culture is really important, and I would say the most critical aspect of driving the transformation. Next, let me briefly talk about some of the stuff related to the virtual banks, which I mentioned about how the virtual banks are coming in and challenging the ecosystem, right? From our perspective, as we kind of see more and more virtual banks coming in, our approach is also to kind of acquire customers digitally, change the digital business, have a digital business model. I think one of the points which was mentioned earlier, right, is not just do digitization or digitalization, create products which are digital first, right, which are kind of built for this kind of digital only business kind of a thing, right? So creating those digital products and offerings is critical. Third, I spoke about the client experience. Having a good client experience in not just from your digital interaction, but also having a good client experience from a servicing perspective is critical for virtual banks, because or digital only banks. So when we kind of look at Citi, and when we talk about Citi Plus, which is one of our solutions towards digital only proposition, it is critical to not only have a good digital experience, but it should also critical to have a good digital servicing experience, right? So that because there are no people, but even through the digital servicing, that needs to be an aspect of personalization and empathy. And lastly, the partnerships, right? So again, as I said, right, one thing which you would have probably consistently seen me talking about is leveraging or harnessing the power of the ecosystem, so that the customers or the clients get the best outcome. Right. So that's from the execution standpoint. And if let me briefly talk about or showcase when I talk about all these different things, what does it mean from a data perspective, right? And it's critical to measure whatever we are doing. So if you look at Citi's adoption, digital adoption, it's pretty much ahead of the industry, and this is based on some of the data which was published earlier this year from HKM. And Citi has been ahead of in most of the attributes or the parameters, much ahead of the average usage in of digital services in Hong Kong. So be it about opening of the account or personal accounts or credit card or payments or loans kind of a thing, right? If we across most of the parameters, you would see we have kind of much ahead of the average penetration in the Hong Kong market. So which kind of reinforces all the work that we've been doing in last couple of years to really drive the transformation, to really drive the usage and the engagement through the digital channels. So this is one kind of reinforcement which showcases that we are on the right track. And lastly, the other critical another thing which kind of reinforces this is the industry recognition, where we've won some of the prestigious awards, industry awards around the best digital bank or the best mobile bank for client experience or in general as such across the various things. So this again, the data that you saw on the previous slide, the data and this one kind of showcases or reinforces or makes us believe that we are on the right track and when we are doing the right things to achieve that digital transformation. So in a nutshell, I would say the four pillars of transformation which are there, right? And so basically, I mean, three things from my side, right? One is having the right platform and having the right ecosystem, the client experience, and risk and control, right? So all these are the important pillars of transformation through which you can meet your organizational objectives. With that, I'll kind of end my sharing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Shah, for your sharing on Citi's experience in this whole digital transformation process. As you can see, it is not simple tacking on a technology. It's a very complicated, concerted effort building the ecosystem, not just of technology, but also of people, right? So that echoes earlier what Dr. Suen also mentioned, right? People being the center of the whole process, whether they are employees or their customers. And it's also very interesting to note from Mr. Shah's sharing that digital transformation is not randomly picking technology here and there and say we are transformed, but it has to be done with an eye towards the DNA of the organization. And that's probably a lot of organizations are thinking about, right? A lot of organizations are thinking about, okay, what do we need to do, right? What, especially now that moving digital is a necessity, not an option. What should we do? And DNA, right? Going back to the DNA of the company, of the people, is critical, and that's something that we can hear from both of the speakers. Okay, so now we are at the Q&A section, and so I would like to once again appeal for you all to ask questions. We have two senior executives here and with their wealth of experience. So if you have any question related to what they have just shared, please type in the chat box and we'll get to the questions in a moment. So maybe I'll start since you've been talking about the experience of Citi, or Dr. Suen mentioning some general trends and also some examples from MTR. Now, these are very big organizations, right? A lot of resources, and our economy, there are a lot of small and medium-sized enterprise that may not have so much resources to spread around for digital transformation. So during the past couple of years, you see a lot of these organizations pulling off-the-shelf technology here and there, and now they are holding on to a whole mixture of technology. So using Google and Google Drive, Baidu Drive, Zoom, Microsoft technology, and so on. So it can get very confusing. So my question to both of you is, in terms of looking for these tools, digital tools to move forward, when do we decide to build it in-house? When do we decide to get it off the shelf or find partners to build onto their ecosystem? And how do we decide on the mixture?
Yes, maybe I take this question first. Yeah, definitely there are many different types of platforms, products, and solutions in the market. So when you talk about some small-sized company, I do believe my recommendation is to go for those off-the-shelf products or services in the cloud. The reasons being it's quite difficult to hire people nowadays for IT people in the market, quite a huge demand of IT talent. And secondly, unless your requirements is so specific, so different from the others. So why you have to do it, why you have to develop it by yourself, right? And you need quite a lot of people in order to bespoke a solution. So my recommendation is go for those open source or cloud services solutions instead of doing it yourself.
Just to add on what was said, right? I think I would say the SMEs would really need to look at what are the use cases that they are solving for, right? What they want to do with is start with the problem statement and see what you're trying to solve for and what are the right set of tools and services available in the market. One of the ways we can evaluate is also whether the tools and services are core to their business, right? And if it is core to their business, what is the risk in terms of engaging a partner or using these common services versus building it something internally. So again, identify whether that is a core service or not a core service. And lastly, I would say any particular regulatory framework, right? Because based on what is the kind of data that your business involves would potentially could also drive the conversation around whether it needs to be what services can be used and stuff like that.
Thank you. We also had some questions earlier from the chat. I think the questions are more directed to Dr. Suen, but Mr. Shah can jump in also if you have any comments on this. So the first question is, what is the platform business model? Do you what is the model that you recommend? And related to that, what do you think the importance of digital mindset you will need to have for digital transformation?
First of all, I'm not 100% sure about the questions about platform business model. So if we are talking about the cloud services platform, I think different cloud services provider, they have different features, different services that you can use. I think is to explore about that, and because there are quite many different, like Mr. Shah just mentioned about, there are quite many different business cases, use cases you can follow, unless your industry is quite peculiar, quite different, quite specific. Otherwise, I do see one can go for all those platform. And also there's other solutions, even when you talk about ERP, you don't necessarily go to the big names. Okay, I'm not going to do promotion, so I'm not for them, so I'm not going to mention about the product name. But there are some local developed software that I do think that can fit quite many purposes. Regarding the second questions, what do you think about the digital mindset? Okay, I think digital mindset is something that everyone embrace the technology. Okay, embrace the change that the technology can bring to them. Never afraid or scared of the technology that will change their job, okay, or that will replace their job. There is something for large organizations, sometimes they talk about the IT competency model. So basically is to understand their basic knowledge of different technologies and understand their attitude towards all this technology. But I think for small organizations, you don't need to look at so structured or scientific model to change your staff. So it's more important that you have to encourage, and if you are the leaders or you are the boss, you just play the role model. Okay, you just play the role model by introducing some technology or encourage them to use technology to start to change. And I think both I and Mr. Shah mentioned about low hanging fruit. Start with something small, okay, and then once they adapt or accept the change, I think they will be more happy to join the journey and work together with other people to change their attitudes or appetite towards technologies.
Thank you. Anything to add to this, Mr. Shah?
I think I think again, because of the word business platform, right? If it was in context of these providing a platform where all the different businesses can kind of use that platform to sell their products or services, kind of a thing, then I would say again, right? Look at the problem statement, look at whether there is a demand in the market, what is the pain point that you're solving for the customer. Again, client obsession or client centricity is critical here, right? So, and that should eventually drive the digital mindset as well, in terms of how do you provide that solution digitally and a complete and create that new business model or create that new digital structure for solving that pain point.
Thank you. Maybe a little bit of follow-up question to this discussion on the digital mindset. I'm sure in your experience also, when you're implementing a digital transformation or a change, there will be resistance, right? Resistance in your employees, among the organizational stakeholders. So how do you handle that?
As I'm discussed in my PowerPoint, I think there should be some clear communications to the working level, to the people in the organizations, why we have to do the changes and what will be the benefit and the visions. And always, as I said before, there are always people like to embark on the journey. So you have to find out who will be the change agent, the catalyst in your organization, who can work together with you. Of course, I mean, for administrative purposes, you can set KPI to every one of the people in the organization or to the department that they have to come up at certain numbers of digital initiatives. But in the end, I think it's communications and work closely together with them, and also find out the pain point. I experienced before, usually go to them and ask them what are their pain points. Okay, and then you get some third party or consultant or even some other people to work together with them. They can come with some pain points. And then through that, you see how you can apply the technologies to help them to resolve their pain points or improve the operations. So in a nutshell, is a communications program. Start with some low-hanging fruit and get them on board on the digital transformation journey.
Thank you. Mr. Shah?
I mean, I would completely echo to all the points that Dr. Suen has raised, right? I think it's important to get their buy-in through communication, to tell them how it will benefit them and how it will benefit the organization and the consumers. And generally, some of the concerns which even Dr. Suen mentioned in his presentation, right? Some of the staff who might be worried about, will that lead to a job loss or anything like that? Nothing like that happens, right? It's generally upskilling, reskilling, and redeploying them to a different nature of job happens. But I think and that keeps happening and evolving with every transformation which has happened in the history.
Thank you. So essentially, ultimately, it comes back to people, right? Walking the journey with them, trying to figure out what their fears are, what their worries are, and try to build a communication around that to make them part of the transformation, to ease the process. We have a couple more questions. So the first one is, digital transformation is also aimed to optimize customer engagement, but customers are divided into many segmentation groups. If organization totally transform to digital operation, how to cover all kinds of customers? For example, smartphone users in different segments in Apple and Android, they may be using different systems and may have different outcomes, different needs. So how do we provide services to all of these customers?
I guess it's yeah, I agree that there are always different customer, different expectations, but I think in the end it's 80-20 rules, right? You cannot set something that can apply universally true. And I see some example that they might have different apps, okay, for different customer or for different services. But I think in the end is even though if you don't talk about digital transformation, you talk about the nowadays day-to-day business, you still have to look at which customer focus segment you really want to focus, right? You cannot cover every single customer segments. And then I see the second part of the question is more to the virtual bank. Maybe I leave it to Mr. Shah.
Right. Okay. So there's this question about virtual banks. What are the incentives to drive people from traditional banking to virtual banks? I guess this is from the customer point of view, yeah?
I think I would say even to the earlier point, right? In fact, that's the power of digital and data, right? And both has to go hand in hand. The digital experiences should be driven by data, and when you look at the data, with data and digital, we have the ability to customize the experience for even one single customer, right? I mean, but generally there will always be commonalities, and it is identifying the segment of customers who have those common attributes and delivering those services or customization to those segment of customers. So I would say digital and data combined with the technology today allows us to go do that micro segmentation and provide that services which are relevant to that segment. So I would say, in fact, it can be done much better in a digital way versus in a non-digital way in terms of segmenting and providing those services. To the other question from moving from traditional to virtual bank, I would say it should not be whether it is traditional or virtual. It should be which bank is providing the right kind of services, meeting the customer needs, and solving the needs of the customer. So whichever bank provides and does that in the best possible way, go with that bank, and and not virtual or traditional.
Thank you. Certainly bringing up new challenges, yeah, when the market is moving. There is another audience member that who said that he saw a news that nearly 70% of companies failed in digitalization strategies. Why and how to avoid the failures? So any one of you would like to tackle that?
I have shared this in my PowerPoint presentations. I think also a similar concept from idea from Mr. Shah. That first of all, you have to understand what do you really want to achieve. Okay, you have to work that out, your ping pongs, and what kind of initiatives you want to do, and set up a good program, clear communication. We always emphasize clear communication, buy-in, and then set the clear KPI and regular monitoring and governance and reporting to the key stakeholders. Start from small. I see some company, they don't have the right people. It might be they don't have the right people. Okay, they want to change everything at the same time. They might also invest in the wrong technology, or even don't have the right investment. So I cannot give you a single answer that the failures of all this, but I do see people that they fail because they don't really have a commitment on that, and there's no buy-in from the working level. So I think there are several factors several factors for the failure. So I have to really look into individual cases. But in general, I still recommend you must have a clear program of what you really want to achieve, and then step by step. Okay, but also you don't aim to do some transformation for a single initiative that lasts for 2 years, 3 years. They were prone to fail. Okay, you must start breaking into unit or start from small before you really embark on large changes or large digital transformation journey.
Mr. Shah?
I think I would say the answer would lie in what I'd shared, right? It's the organization DNA. Setting up the culture, setting up the talent, the processes, and and look. Also, the other critical thing is not to be afraid of failure, right? It is that mindset of fail fast, learn fast, and again kind of to start onto the next thing, and get onto the next iteration, and learn from those experiences, and build onto something, evolve into building something new, right? So I would say not to be afraid of failures, but if you fail fast, and take things faster.
Thank you. So very important here, both speakers also share that you have to start with the purpose, right? Start with the DNA, the purpose, why you're doing this, what you're doing this for, who are you doing this for, and then just do a whole bunch of smaller experimentations, learn from the experimentations. Some of them are going to work, some of them are going to fail. If they fail, it is okay, and then you learn from it, and then try to see if you can scale up any of your smaller experimentations. Right. So I am very conscious of the time here, and I would also like to give our speakers, each of our speakers, a chance to share some last words. Oh, before we do that, maybe we'll take one more question before that. Yeah. All right, so here is the question. Digital transformation means another huge security concern, yes, because of the free network. May I have your opinions on the problems?
All right, okay. I see no matter you have transformation or not, you still have to protect your sensitive data or confidential data in your company. A lot of people, they worry about using the cloud services because the data will be residing in the cloud. But I always ask those persons how much they spend on cybersecurity in their own company. Do they really know how to protect their own IT server room or computer room? And think about how much money those giant company, cloud services company, they spend on the cybersecurity control. Okay, so I honestly, I don't really see, I mean, there's a risk by putting the data onto the cloud instead of you keeping yourself. Just like why you put your money in the bank, why don't you put money in your safe box in your house, right? So I see this, the issue is, do you know what is your personal data? Do you know what you need to protect? And when you subscribe those cloud services or transform those, you have to think about all this and check with your services provider how they're going to protect the data, whether you can, whether the data will be shared. But I can tell you, I mean, usually you have your own storage for your own data. Okay, there won't be share. Okay, so just ask yourself, even for your own company, what are you doing right now to protect your confidential or sensitive data?
Thank you, Mr. Shah. Surely a big problem for banking finance sector, yeah?
Yeah, it is, right, and it's pretty much a lot of investment goes into cybersecurity. And look, I'm not an expert at cybersecurity, but I can say that it's a evolving space every day. There's a new thing popping up in that space, and we need to kind of try to be ahead of the curve in terms of these emerging risks. The key question is, or the key thing is, as these emerging risks arise, what are the tools, the technologies, and the infrastructure that you have that can help you quickly react to it, right? And protect, again, to the core point of what is the data that you handle, and then based on the sensitivity of the data, putting in the right controls and making the right investment to protect those kind of information. Again, the other point could be around, this could be one of the, again, areas where you could think of build in-house versus tech partnership kind of a thing, right? Again, could be a good example of how much skill set or resources are available in-house versus what's happening in the industry, the talent in the industry, leveraging that expertise in the industry to kind of provide the required services. So again, it's a combination of things which will kind of help mitigate the risk, emerging risk that arise.
Thank you. So we have one last question. So maybe we'll use this question to close. So the question is, I believe there's sufficient theories to support the necessity of digitalization revolution in each industry, but is there any successful cases in regards to the huge changes to prove the theories? So I guess case of success, yeah?
I do think there are many successful cases, right, in different industry. If you look at Netflix, if you look at Uber, you look at other industry, they all change very significantly in the last couple of years. And even in some local companies here in Hong Kong, of course, some of the cases they might not be publicly published, okay, but there are still many. Otherwise, there won't be so many story or cases talking about digital transformation. And in particular, I think in banking industry, there are a lot of changes in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about success, probably, I mean, I did try to share the kind of success that we see at Citi through this digital transformation. So I would say, again, digital transformation is going to be a journey, right? And you keep measuring your success based on the KPIs that you had set, the milestones that you had set, and keep measuring against those milestones and those KPIs at regular intervals, so that you stay on the right track of that transformation. Yeah, so a lot of industries, a lot of successful examples around that. And from banking, I would say probably even that perspective, Citi has been doing pretty well from a transformation standpoint.
Thank you. Surely, based on the measures, the data, KPI, so far, Citi is one of the examples that you can say it's doing quite well in terms of digital transformation, and that is a long existing organization to also. So that's not easy. All right, so we are going to close now. So thank you very much for joining us. And again, if you are interested in learning more about our program, PolyU MBA, there are some QR codes on the screen here, so you can go there and check out. the programs, and we still have a few days before our application deadline. So thank you very much for sharing and coming, joining us this afternoon. And we wish you a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.